our primary votes are counting for the
Absolutely.
for the first time. And Libbie, if you could explain, it seems pretty complicated to me. I went and voted early and was told to come back to my polling place after I'd cast my ballot in order to caucus. So can you explain why Texas has this crazy system and how does it work?
No, but yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is not. Many of the newly energized voters are excited around the top of the ticket, and that sleeping giant that each of you has referred to so far. I really talk about that sleeping giant being that voter between the ages of 18 and 35, whatever color they are and whatever ethnicity they represent. That is a group of voters who have historically not been spoken to or engaged. And so that group that's voting now is really taken aback with the second phase of the voting process around presidents. I was in a conversation with a young man a couple of weeks ago who was all excited about the election, and I just engaged him in the conversation around caucusing and the second step, and his face he went blank. He didn't understand, and the conversation had not even begun 2 weeks ago when there was a realization that Texas mattered. And so when we began to talk about it, and he said, well, where did this come from? Well, this is historic. It was about how delegates are selected to the national convention. It really has little to... Becoming a delegate to the national convention is the ultimate in politics. And so Texas created this process, and I'm being kind, but it is a process that just says by the time you get to the National Democratic Convention, you are truly committed. And it's kind of a subliminal way to make it happen, but you really have to be willing to go that far and pay your own way, by the way.
So it's only the Democrats that do this way?
To the degree that we're talking about, absolutely.
So what do we expect when we go there and caucus? I mean, are we seeing what we saw in the other states happen, do you know?
Not likely. You caucus for delegates, and that's really what, they've simplified it sort of because of the last two elections that indicated which one of the senatorial districts were going to collect the number of ballots or delegates based upon the number of votes that were cast in 2004 and 2006. It has nothing to do with what's going on currently. It's what happened 2 years ago. And so in urban communities like Dallas, Senator West, and in Houston, Senator Rodney Ellis have two of the largest, they had a very large turnout in their senatorial districts. So there's a predetermined formula that was established based upon the vote 2 years ago. Are you confused yet?
Yes, but I know that people can go to dalcoelections.org and enter their address in order to find out where they need to go if they voted in the Democratic primary, where they can go in order to make their vote known. And I know that we have a link to that from pegasusnews.com. I know that your site also has candidate surveys for the statewide offices of Senate and Congress. I guess that's the Texas League of Women Voters.
Yes.
And we've partnered Pegasus News and League of Women Voters Dallas so that for the November election we can bring the candidate surveys.
Absolutely. There's a voter's guide. But let me explain just one more thing about March 4th at 7:15. You do return to your precinct, not the place that you cast your ballot if you voted early, but you go back to your precinct, and that number is going to be found on your voter's registration card, and that's where you go if you're voting in the Democratic primary. If you are not, then you don't have to have that step.
And also if you voted in the primary, either your voter registration card or your slip of paper that you received at the time that you voted. You have to have that to prove you voted in the primary in order to be part of that conversation, correct?
Yes, and many people did not receive it because, and I don't believe that there was an intentional, there was some real intent to, not to the intent to confuse. I think many of the people who work the elections are just regular people. They don't have all the rules either. But if you take your ID and it indicates that you are in that precinct, you should be okay to get there. There's going to be a lot of confusion. If I say anything, just keep your cool.